Hi, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
Is he taken?
Hey, Kiernan.
Hello, Ryan. Well, hello, Ryan. I'm not sure how it's been 185 episodes, and I've never sung Hello, Dolly when you say hello. It's weird.
I just heard all the Apple phones just clicking next podcast when you did that.
I guess we steered away from me breaking out into sporadic show tunes after the How to Score Broadway Tickets episode, which was full of great tips, by the way.
Great tips. Hey, I just bought a Broadway ticket.
Is that right?
Yeah, I am coming to see Oh, Mary.
It's supposed to be great.
Yeah, which stars my very old friend, like literally met this guy in 2005, Cola Scola.
He's a star.
I know. No, they are a star. So yeah, super excited to see it. And for folks who don't know, it is a reimagining of Lincoln's wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, in the weeks before the assassination, and somehow takes place also in a theater, I think. I don't really know, but it's supposed to be incredibly funny. And Cole was one of the funniest people on the planet. So I'm thrilled.
It's been on a giant media tour lately as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know what? To be fair, though, that's something you and Cole have in common. Folks who are following the old Out of Office Instagram at OOO podcast, they know that you were just on the cover of the Boston travel section.
That's correct. So, the book has been off to a solid start. And you know what I my vain side really liked was it was a long article, and it wasn't just about the book. It was like kind of a profile too, pretty good. So my many thanks to Christopher Muther of the Boston Globe. He was a fascinating journalist to get to know. He has been a travel journalist for the Boston Globe for about 2 decades, Ryan, and just told me his itinerary for the next few months, and it would have had the two of us just drooling. I don't think I'm allowed to share it here, but I said to him, he's got an open invitation to come on Out of Office.
Oh, we should definitely have him on Out of Office. And you were able to show him things in Boston he didn't even know about. So
that's exactly right. And the online stores immediately sold out of the book. So we're working on trying to get them.
Really?
Oh yeah! Listen, I am.
Oh my gosh!
I am an Amazon #1 seller in New England travel books and Boston travel.
Congratulations!
Books. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have no idea the scale that means, but all I know is that Secret Boston was up above Frommer's, above Foders. Is there another one that sounds like that?
I mean, there are no other Boston travel guides in my mind. So that is exciting. Congratulations, you and John Grissom, the best-selling authors.
That's us. Ryan, I do want to make sure that we get to the Judy alert, which is where you are, but I think that also might tie into where you aren't, but what you're going to talk to us about today.
Yeah, so I am actually in Mexico City, but when this episode comes out, I will be hanging out with my mom in Ocean City, Maryland. So she will know where I am, and she listens to the podcast not on headphones because she's a boomer, so I always hear it like really loud on her PC laptop speakers.
Yes.
The way that we all imagine our listeners listening. But today I'm going to talk about El Salvador, which I had to go back to after you bullied me into finishing
trying to make you go outside when there was a little bit of rain. Yes.
Well, luckily the rain passed and I was able to take in pretty much all that El Salvador has to offer.
So you got your Bitcoin wallet ready, and you flew back, and today is going to be a thorough education on El Salvador. And where are you right now?
In Mexico City. I'm in an Airbnb in Roma Norte.
Of course you're in Roma. It makes sense.
I know.
But before we dig in, and it's good to hear that you're going to be with Judy. So maybe next time we do the Judy alert, she's going to be right there. We could have Judy on the Judy alert. It would be fantastic.
I'll see if I can get her. She's tough to book.
We have so much housekeeping to do here, Ryan. And I think it begins most importantly with some of our new reviews. And this ties actually to the Secret Boston book, because in one of our last episodes, we said for the first 2 reviewers who mentioned Secret Boston in their 5-star reviews, we're going to get a free book. And I have we got a number of new reviews. One from Umish Steve D said, "Great show. Looking forward to the book Secret Boston." Pretty basic. Didn't put too much effort in, but still mentioned it. And Steve actually hit me up on Instagram, so I have his address. But this is a call out to user Sandy BDR. Sandy BDR, you are owed a Secret Boston book for free because you wrote a wonderful travel podcast. It's funny and informative, and inspires the spirit of wanderlust, even and especially during the workaday week. So she's a loyal listener because she knows the taglines. And then she said she was looking forward to Secret Boston Unusual Guide, and that she's actually coming here. So I feel urgently. I mean, maybe, Sandy, if you want, I'd be happy to deliver it to you in person when you're here in Boston. So reach out to me on Insta. It's Kiernan P. Schmidt on Instagram, or you can go to Out of Office. Or you can go to OOO Podcast.
Yeah, and I know a place that you all could grab some hummus while you're in town. So
I appreciate you trying to shill for my day job as well, Ryan.
Yeah.
And you're, of course, referring to Clover, which also made its way subtly into the Boston Globe article, if you notice.
And we have we've got a lot of reviews. So thank you so much, folks. Go over there to the Apple Podcast, leave your 5-star review. We got a 3-star review, and then they made a request about what we cover, that we cover Bend, Oregon. I think
it was a very it was short and to the point.
Yeah.
Subject line: it's okay. 3 stars, and then do Bend, Oregon, please.
Yeah, so
I'm shocked they're still listening at only 3 stars.
Yeah, well, I think if we do Bend, Oregon, which we have no plans on doing now. In fact, I was headed there next week.
Yeah, far less plans than we had previous.
I'm going to spend a whole week in Bend, Oregon, and not even talk about it. But we did get some great new 5-star reviews. You mentioned a couple of them. I want to give a shout out to Emily, who said it's her second favorite podcast after Rick Steves.
Mine too. Yeah. I'm in a complete agreement.
Yeah, we'll take that. And she loves hearing about national parks in South America. Well, this is the podcast for you.
Yeah, wow. that could be the tagline.
Yeah. And then PC Queen, who I either uses a PC, and this might be my mother, either uses a PC or is very politically correct as
or could be a Providence College queen.
Ooh, that's true. She loves the pod and is this the same one you just did? Sandy BDR?
No, she unfortunately did not make the cutoff. She was not one of the first 2 to mention Secret Boston. So while I want PC Queen to get the book,
it's sold out.
I hope it is. There's a backlist. You can go on bookshop.org or Amazon, and they'll take in. Or if you're in the Boston area, plentiful copies in bookstores here.
Yeah, well, sorry, PC Queen. You can pick it up at a bookstore near you. But thank you for the shout out. And she really likes our a variety of large and smaller cities. And you know what? We really like that too. Like, we think that there are so many reasons to visit places. And we're going to keep doing the big places and the small places and the in-between places.
Fantastic, Ryan. And now I believe we also got a couple of emails in the Out of Office inbox. That would be outofofficepod@gmail.com.
Yes, we got an email from Scott Hindley, who sent a lovely email that he tried to give us 5 stars, but could only give us 4. Would love to know a little more about that, Scott. Maybe, that's an issue other folks have faced. But said really nice things about the podcast and enjoyed the episode on Chicago and recommended Market Days. Now, Market Days is basically a big sort of gay pride experience in Chicago. I've never been, but I would love to go before I get too much older. So Scott, that's on my list, and thank you so much for the email. And then we got an email from Aspie Cave, who is it Cave or Cave? You think?
I don't know. I love caves. Though.
Yeah, I mean, considering it's an email about Mammoth Cave, reaching out to say that she really enjoyed the episode on Mammoth Cave, and they want to travel there. And they recommend we do a Lexington episode. We would love to go to Lexington. We even chatted about making a little stopover, but it wasn't close enough this trip. So thank you all so much. Keep the reviews coming. Keep the emails coming. If you want to hit us up on Instagram, it's OOO Podcast. If you want to email us, it's outofofficepod@gmail.com.
That's just good marketing. Yeah. You want two different things for
as
people
complicated
to
as possible.
Absolutely.
Now, the last episode, I gave you a quest for one of your classmates. How's that going?
We opened up a quest. We have to check in on two more quests before we get to El Salvador. So the first this is the first official installment of the quest for Mayor Pete Buttigieg. We're trying to get the Secretary of Transportation on here. And by the way, this is also a part recalculating. So if we could just play the recalculating. Recalculating. Yeah, I was listening back to the last episode, Ryan. Turns out I called him Secretary of the Treasury.
No.
Which, I mean, a great compliment. And, I'm sure he'd do a bang up job.
Slap in the face to Janet Yellen, though, I want to say. Who is Secretary of Treasury.
Fair enough. And maybe we're going to open up a future quest.
We could have her on. If Janet Yellen wants to come on, she's more than welcome.
The only update on Mayor Pete is, we had to get through the DNC before his calendar was going to open up. So the initial outreach is happening. We've got some names. You and I have both been looking through the LinkedIns and creeping on some folks, and we've got friends of friends of friends of friends. We've got a lot of connections here because we got the Harvard Mafia from me. We've got the gay mafia from you. So I feel very good about our chances on the quest for Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg to come on and talk to us about all things transportation, because there's some good things, there's some bad things, and I think we could do some good, hard-hitting, substantive journalism when Mayor Pete comes on.
Yeah, and that's why people tune in to Out of Office. They want to hear us talk about politics and interview politicians. So
absolutely. Oh man, God, imagine what Cornhusker 55 is going to do if we have Pete Buttigieg come on. Really pretty rough. Now the second, we got to take a little bit more serious tone on this one, because I do want to share, as everyone knows, we've got someone who's close to the podcast. We've long for many years had the quest for Rick Steves, who sent us messages and finally was generous enough almost about a year ago to come on. And Ryan and I both think that's one of the best times we've had on the podcast, chatting with Rick Steves. And I do want to update here, because I know we have a lot of Rick Steves fans in our listening audience, that Rick Steves actually had some pretty serious news come through, which is that he has prostate cancer. And he announced it on social media. Of course, our thoughts are with him and his family. And he said, he's assured that he's going to make a full recovery, and he's feeling very good about the treatment ahead. But I was also struck by just the typical Rick Steves kind of optimistic, glass half full kind of tone that he took in this part of what he posted. So I thought I'd just read it here. While the statistics tell me I should be just fine, I've been fortunate to have never spent a night in a hospital and find myself going into this adventure almost like it's some amazing, really important trip. I feel good about my positive attitude, and I expect to take home some delightful, if intangible, souvenirs, like appreciating and seeing a vibrancy in the little things, appreciating the goodness in people and the treasure of friends and family, being wowed by modern medicine and the army of amazing, smart, and dedicated people that make it possible, appreciating what a blessing life, health, and the world to enjoy is, and just in general being more thankful. So just pitch perfect Rick Steves, still himself, despite going through some health struggles here. And we will, of course, be here to support him every step of the way and bring those updates here on Out of Office.
Yeah, well, sending our love and healing energy to Rick, who's one of the great travel personalities of all time. I think it's safe to
Absolutely.
say. Yeah.
And I was most relieved to say he said he was cleared by his doctors, despite the surgery that he needs to continue to do his work. And he's actually right now, I think, actually oversees recording a new set of shows before he actually comes back and gets his treatment.
Well, we wish him best, and we'll keep folks updated.
Well, with that, Ryan, finally, a lot of housekeeping today. With that, I think it's time for us to get to El Salvador.
Tell the cabin crew.
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
All right, Kieran. So we are in El Salvador. Now, El Salvador is a little country. It's in Central America. It borders Honduras and Guatemala and the Pacific Ocean. And the largest city and sort of the main place that folks go is San Salvador. And to give you an idea,
easy to remember,
the savior. You can't go wrong with that. The whole country though has a population of 6.5 million, which is pretty small.
You know, but San isn't San Saint. So what is it? Saint Savior?
Saint Savior. Yeah, I mean, if Jesus isn't a saint, who is really? You know?
Is Salvador definitely Savior? I just assumed it was the name Salvador.
No, it's definitely Savior.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
no, El Salvador was very, very Catholic for a very long time, and now it is a mix of evangelical and Catholic. In fact, in my hotel, there were quite a few missionaries who were hanging out, doing missionary things.
Dad, so okay, all right,
yeah. Not what I was doing.
Well, that's not really your style.
Before we jump in, I want to spend a minute to talk about President Bukele.
Oh, sure, everybody's favorite dictator. What's he call himself? The coolest dictator?
He's the coolest dictator, right? So, El Salvador used to be a place that, it wasn't really safe to visit, and the State Department told you not to visit. And when I told my mom that I was going, she pulled out articles from the early 2000s that were very convincing as to why you shouldn't go to El Salvador. But then, they elected this president, and he has, in a very problematic, and some folks would even say fascist way, dramatically lowered the crime rate in El Salvador through this thing called the gang crackdown, where he's arrested an incredible amount of people. In fact, 1.6% of the country's population is now incarcerated, which is one of the highest in the world. And it's problematic because you can read stories in the New Yorker and other places about how people have been swept up in this who didn't have any kind of gang affiliation, and it's led to a lot of pain for many families, and it's obviously incredibly complicated. I met and spoke to a lot of people. Whenever I'm in a country, I'm always like really trying to get to people's feelings about how the country's doing in a way that's probably not even appropriate. But a lot people really like him. He's quite popular, but also I met quite a few people who, really do not like him and had a lot of things to say. So I do want to flag that, as we're talking about that, I'm not trying to downplay, what has gone on in El Salvador, but it is a safe country to visit now. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a beautiful country, and that there are things to see, which we're going to talk about today.
And what was it? What was your impetus in originally choosing to go to El Salvador, despite these political red flags?
Well, I hadn't been, and my entire time traveling in Latin America, except for the last few years, it hasn't been a country that you could go to. And we've talked about this in the past. Cuba opened up briefly for Americans, and if you didn't get in, you're gonna have to wait until it opens up again, right?
And I'm in that boat.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons I chose to go. Like, who knows how long the country will remain stable. And it's supposed to be a beautiful country, and it has an interesting history. And so I figured now was the time to go. And so I went not just once, but twice, because I didn't get to do everything the first time, because it's really important to check the calendar for their rainy seasons, because when they say it's a rainy season, they don't mean it's going to rain a little bit, like in Mexico or
no, you
in
got to
Colombia.
bring those galoshes.
Yeah, it is that level of just like constant downpour. But on my second trip back, beautiful weather. Both times I stayed at this really cute hotel, which is in a very central location, the Barcelio San Salvador. It's a Spanish chain, and it's a super cute hotel. They had the weirdest kind of fancy cocktail bar that was called Churchill's Bar, and I really assumed there'd be some connection, like to the hotel or even to El Salvador, but there is absolutely none. It is just
who's a famous drunk.
Who's a famous drunk, and it does feel like a place Churchill would enjoy. Like there's a lot of leather couches, and it seems like a place that before they had too many laws, like you could probably smoke a cigar there. They made a pretty good old fashioned, but it was full of weird things. Like they had printed out Winston Churchill's Wikipedia and put it in a leather binder, like it was a beautiful book. And when you opened it, it was literally the printed out Wikipedia of Winston Churchill, which I have to tell you, I read a disturbing amount of while I was drinking at the Churchill bar. But no connection with Churchill, but actually a pretty nice place to hang out, very quiet, to read. You can read the Wikipedia on Churchill. But that's that area is sort of where I recommend that you stay if you're going to visit, because it's pretty central to a lot of the things in the city, and the city is really the thing. Jumping into really the main thing to do. There is a volcano in El Salvador that's literally called the Volcano of El Salvador, and it's in a big national park. And it has recently been renovated, and it's a really beautiful park. It does take a little bit of time to get to. It's about a 45-minute Uber ride, but you can get an Uber there, and you can find an Uber back, so that's not an issue. And you can actually walk around the edge of the volcano. Now, the volcano hasn't erupted since 1917, so you're probably fine, but it is still an active volcano. There's a little history museum in the beginning with some photos of the day that it erupted in 1917, and some narratives of sort of what that was like for, the people who unfortunately lived on the volcano. In fact, the city sort of is built up the volcano. So as you're driving up, there are houses and stuff, people who like live on the volcano. I don't know that I would live on a volcano. I would live maybe like a little bit off the volcano.
It's not that common that they explode.
I mean, it's been long enough though, right? It's like over 100 years. At some point you're due. But it's what was really cool about how they've done the renovation is it's super walkable. You walk around sort of the rim of the volcano. You can take really cool photos. You can definitely get your steps in. There's a lot of steps. And they've built some really cool like lookout areas that are all glass on the floor. So when you're standing out there and you look down, you can really get like an image of, oh wow, I am, standing inside the rim of this volcano. Totally cool. It was a really beautiful day. Wear your sunscreen, because boy, when you're on the top of that volcano, there's nothing protecting you from that sun. And then when you leave the national park, there's a bunch of little restaurants that are built on the side of the volcano, and you can sit out on the patios of any of these restaurants. They're all kind of the same. They serve just sort of meat and potatoes and coffee, and you can sit out on the balcony, and it overlooks the city, from the top of the volcano. So definitely recommend either before or after your trip. And it's only like an hour national park by the time you hike up there and you hike back. It's not a huge park, but definitely recommend you either have a little food before or after, so you can also take in the view of San Salvador from the top of the volcano.
And about how long does that trip take?
It's about 45 minutes or an hour drive to and from, and then in the national park it took us a little over an hour to walk all the paved roads and see everything. So it's not a huge park, but it is really beautiful and super popular.
And with so close to the city. That's nice.
Yeah, really close to the city. Oh, and they take U.S. dollars in El Salvador. They also take Bitcoin, but not at the park. At the park, you need cash, so make sure you have a $5 or $10 with you, so you can get in, because there are no ATMs up there on the volcano. And you don't want to have to go down and find cash and come all the way back up.
Did you, on the cash situation, did you travel with the cash you were using, or could you get cash out there?
Super easy to get cash. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not Argentina. They have plenty of U.S. dollars, and it's a pretty reasonably priced country. The dollar is very strong there, and yeah, so just carry around some cash because a lot of places don't take credit cards. Now, they have an historic center of the city, like a lot of these great colonial cities, but it is they're very new to having tourists, so you can tell that they're trying to figure out what exactly tourists want to do. So what they've done is in the city center, they've opened the National Palace for tours. And what's really cool is when we went like a few months ago, it was actually closed for renovations. And when I went a couple weeks ago, it had just opened literally that weekend. So I was amongst the first people to get to go into this really beautiful classical palace that served as the seat of government up until the early 1900s. It was built in 1905. They used it just for a bit as like the place where the president lived, and now the president lives somewhere else that people didn't seem like I should go there. They kept saying like, no, nobody visits there kind of thing. I'm like, okay. But it's a really, really beautiful space, and they've now turned it into a cultural center. So they have book readings there and lectures and concerts and things like that. But the tour is actually much more. It's because the way they built the palace is inside there's this huge garden. And when you're walking around the palace and you're getting a tour of where the Congress used to meet and where the president used to stay, every time you walk out, you're in this inner balcony area where you're overlooking this incredible garden that has these trees that have been growing since 1905. So they tower kind of over the palace. It is quite an impressive sight. It is open very late at night. We went during the day, but our guide who was amazing, like he'd spent a bunch of years in Los Angeles and he was like obsessed with talking about the US with me. But his English was incredible and he knew so much about El Salvador. He had moved back just recently because of how safe it is, even though he is skeptical of the president. I can't believe the guy told me that who works at the National Palace. But he said that you come back at night, it's like a totally different experience because everything is lit up beautifully inside. So I can only imagine how cool that is. So most definitely the palace and the volcano, I think, are the two things in the city that, if you're there, and this is a city that you can spend a weekend in and feel very comfortable that you've kind of checked off all the big boxes. Those are the things to see. Another, interesting thing. So, that China has been investing incredibly heavily into Latin America.
Yes.
So China, the nation of China, gifted the nation of El Salvador with a brand new national library that literally opened November of last year. And Chase and I were sort of split on the beauty of this library. He thought it was quite stunning. I thought it looked like a community college had crashed into a spaceship. It is very modern, but it does to me look like a community college or a hospital you would see in like a Houston suburb. It's not. It's obviously new, but it's a weird. It stands out because it's like right next to the National Palace, which is this gorgeous like classical building from 1900, and then there's this spaceship next to it that's super lit up and open 24 hours a day. They love things open late in El Salvador, which I appreciate. The both the palace and the library open really late. The library never closes. But it is certainly interesting to see. We didn't do the tour inside, but it is something that you'll see in the main square. If you're downtown in the historic center, and that's the National Library of El Salvador. And I wanted to get really mad because they tore down the old National Library. I wanted to be like, I can't believe that they tore down this beautiful building. And then I found pictures of the old National Library, and I was like, it looks like a Soviet era, like it's super depressing. So, they didn't lose anything great there, but it is an interesting thing. Again, it was a gift to the people, and it is their new National Library. It's been open for less than a year.
And did you actually pick up any books?
No, I didn't go inside. I got the gist.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, also in the historic center is this really incredibly beautiful from the inside church, and I could not get in because I could not.
A lot of outside tourism going on here.
Well, I tried on both my trips to get in, and the website said it was open, and Google suggested it was open. This is what I mean by like it's a city that's trying to figure out their tourism.
Right.
It wasn't super obvious. But this is the Church of the Roses, and in the outside it looks sort of like stepping. It looks like you're sort of stepping up a concrete stairs, but on the inside, which I've only seen in photos, each of these concrete stairs is really a stained glass window of a different color, and it gives off this incredibly beautiful visual. So I this is one of my reasons to go back. And remember, I texted you and said I might go to mass on Sunday.
I do remember. That was my next question. Ryan texted me and said I might go to mass tomorrow. So I knew something was wrong. Now I understand.
Yeah. So I wanted to go see this church. And, it was built in the 60s, very 60s style. But I didn't make it to mass on Sunday morning because I was out Saturday night. So what are you going to do?
Okay, all right. So now, they did open for mass. It was just that you neglected to go. Also, just to save us a recalculating, it means the rosary, not the roses.
Oh, you're right. It does mean the rosary.
Well, yes. Yeah, I'm a good Catholic boy. Yeah. Of course, I know what the rosary is.
So I do think I'll probably get back to El Salvador at some point, and because they have something is going on where the flights there are just incredibly reasonable from pretty much anywhere in Latin America. So if you go to El Salvador as your sort of like layover town to go to South America, it's a great place to spend a weekend and then go off to Peru or Colombia or some other place that you might want to visit even further south. It's interesting how they've, for whatever reason, the flights are just really affordable. So I like restaurants. And so, had a lot of nights in San Salvador. Went to a lot of places. I'm only going to talk about a few that I would recommend. It's a weird food scene. And one of the weirdest things is almost every restaurant you go to, no matter what the main food is, you're at a steakhouse or you're at an Italian place or you're at a French restaurant or a classic El Salvadorian restaurant, for reasons that I have not been able to understand. And if anybody knows, you should reach out. They have a page of both pizza and sushi. So it is the strangest thing that I've ever seen, but without fail, with the exception of, I think, one restaurant, El Oxlo, which we'll talk about, pizza and sushi was on the menu. Isn't that strange to you? I mean, those two things don't go together to begin with.
No. And I don't think Churchill would like it very much either. That's a concern.
No, I don't think Churchill would turn down a pizza.
Especially after he's had a few. Good point.
Yeah. So there is a really classic El Salvadorian restaurant called Hacienda Real, and we ate here twice because it was so much fun. It is kind of like old school El Salvadorian steak and potatoes kind of place. I actually don't think they had pizza on their menu, but they had really. El Salvador has like an industry to produce, with cows, and obviously they're close to other countries that also, so they have really good access to high quality meat. And the atmosphere was really like a lot of like families and birthday parties and anniversaries, but it wasn't like fancy. It was like a home. It was like being in somebody's house with this big open kitchen while they were frying up the steaks, grilling up the steaks, and I got to try a couple different cuts on the menu, and they had a pretty decent wine selection, and it was just a really good time. So I would definitely recommend that if you're looking for something, that's not too fancy, not too buttoned up. It's a really lovely meal. Now, this is the one. This restaurant called Monarca, and this is in an old mansion, and it has the benefit of being across the street from the hotel that I stayed at, literally like across the street. And it is a beautiful restaurant. And for reasons that I could not get the waiter to explain to me the 2 times I ate there, the artist, Florida artist, Chichuli?
Chihuly, yes.
Chihuly.
Dale Chihuly,
Dale
the
Chihuly.
glass blower.
The one-eyed glass blower. Yes.
Exactly, the one-eyed glass blower. And I bet you can make a guess where that eye went.
Yeah. Back when he made his own art. So they have an incredible collection of his work hanging all over the restaurant, which was really fun to see. And I asked the waiter if.
By the way, before we get people writing in, he lost his eye in a car accident, not because his glass blew up in his eye.
Yes, I know. But it does seem like it could have been.
It's fitting, it certainly adds to the mystique.
It makes him look cool. Yeah. So yeah, for whatever reason, they've got a lot of his art hanging. They've also got just a lot of like other sort of local art. It's a really beautiful restaurant, really classic, sort of French inspired menu with a little Italian, sort of classic fine dining. They have a great outside porch that's sort of in the backyard of the mansion, and it's really gorgeous. And when it rains, which it does do in El Salvador,
you in this rain.
You don't get wet, but you have a great view of the garden as it rains, and it's actually
that's so nice.
It's actually quite lovely. Yeah.
Now, you used to call Dale Chihuly Florida, but he's a Pacific Northwest guy.
Well, his main studio is outside of Tampa because I've talked about it before. I've been there. His main
does he just live in the Pacific Northwest? Because the big Dale Chihuly Museum is in Seattle.
Is that true?
Yeah. I just double checked just to be sure.
There's a collection of his in St. Pete's. So maybe he's got multiple.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, he's a big guy.
He when you have 40 people making your art, you can make a lot of it.
Exactly. Yeah, he's got studios everywhere. It's like a franchise.
It is a franchise, but he prices it as if it's all unique. I'm sure, but it is. So that's why I call him Florida based. But he does seem like somebody who would be Pacific Northwest. But yeah, beautiful restaurant. And what is fun, you go there and eat, and then go upstairs to the cocktail bar, which is also very cool, and it's on the roof of the mansion. And it's where all like the cool kids go cool kids with cash go in El Salvador. It's a very hip cocktail bar and cigar bar. And I'm not a cigar guy. I mean, literally the last time I had a cigar was when I was in Cuba. So maybe this is my second cigar in my entire life, but I had to order it because they bring it out like, a tray, and you pick, and then they go and they do the whole thing with like the cut. It's very like elaborate ritual, It was hard to, I must have only smoked like 1/8 of it or something, because those things are strong. But it is a very fun vibe. So would recommend, doing dinner at the restaurant, then going upstairs, having a cocktail. And if you're in the mood, have a cigar. Don't worry, folks. It's open air, so it's not like disgusting. You're sitting on like basically the upstairs deck of this old colonial mansion. So I want to talk about one of the restaurants that's, one of the most famous. It's on the Latin American Best 100 restaurant list, and it's called El Zolo.
And that's with an X.
With an X.
XOLO.
Yeah. And it's sort of hidden behind inside the Anthropology Museum. So in fact, it's kind of difficult to find at night. So just go to the Anthropology Museum and you'll be able to find it from there. But this is, one of these chefs who is doing small plates that are all very, a callback to the indigenous culture of El Salvador. And, the food is really interesting. We had a couple kind of corn-based things that were really quite fun. And the ceviche was incredible, because obviously the El Salvador borders the Pacific Ocean, so they have access to a lot of fresh fish. And it was really fun design. In fact, I posted it, and my mom thought I was like in some kind of weird dungeon or something. She's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's
Wow.
it's a restaurant, Mom."
It's not totally unlike you, either one of those.
So I recommend it. I liked it. But it's not, if you're really in the mood for fine dining, it's not incredible. I actually think that Marika, while not like as fancy or as like fine, is just a really fun experience. So if you just have like one night and you want to have a fun night out on the town, like that would be my recommendation. But this other one, it's cool, and they're trying to do something interesting. And like I said, the restaurant scene is not really well developed. There's just a lot of like okay places, and the places I've talked about today are at least, I think, trying to do something fun and trying to kind of create that atmosphere of restaurant tourism. I would be remiss to not mention this really fun breakfast place called the Biscuit Factory. And I love breakfast, Kieran. I love it.
Famously.
I love coffee. You love coffee too.
I do. I'm a great fan of coffee, and I believe some good coffee is grown in El Salvador.
They definitely are making that claim. A lot of places in El Salvador, and this place serves El Salvadorian coffee, served in all the fancy ways, French press and Chemex and all that good stuff. And the coffee was great, and the breakfast was quite lovely. And it's a big open, friendly place that's also sort of close to the hotel we discussed. So you could imagine, you have a night out at Monarcha, you hit up the upstairs cocktail bar, you have a drink at Churchill's, and then the next morning you wash it all down with some of that excellent El Salvadorian coffee at the Biscuit Factory. Definitely worth doing. And then I want to mention this one club.
Now we're getting to the dungeon stuff.
No, it's very bright and airy. This is a club called Living SV. And it is like the gay club. When I say the gay club, that's the one in El Salvador. So you can't miss it. And it's surprisingly fun. It is big and bright, and they've got a big dance floor room with a lot of lights and music. Kieran, I know you love a good dance floor. And then in the back they've got a quieter sort of out in kind of outdoor covered patio area that's much more quiet, with tables that people sit and chat. So it's got
I like a sit and chat more. I'm more of a sit and chatter.
What's good, it's got both of those vibes, which is nice, because I'm not actually like a dance floor guy at all. I'm a sit and chatter. But it's good to have the dance floor guys around, because they're usually more exciting than the sit and chatter.
I like to stand in the doorway between the two, and the right side of my body will be dancing, and the left side will be reading a New Yorker.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't read the New Yorker there, because it's probably even loud in the chatty place. What is funny is I couldn't because I don't speak Spanish very well. It appears that for some reason drinks are two for one in ways that I couldn't figure out when I ordered. So sometimes I would order a drink and they bring me two identical drinks, and sometimes they wouldn't. But me, I'm not going to let a drink go to waste, and that's
sure, of course.
That's why I missed the volcano the last time. But it's a really fun place, and for our gay listeners or our allies, it is one of the better nights out on the town. I imagine. I didn't go anywhere else in the city. And now I want to go in. So we've been in San Salvador. That is sort of there's an art museum that's fine. The archaeological museum is fine, but they're not world class. And if you only have a weekend, I would really focus on the volcano, the historic center, and maybe getting a couple meals and having some coffee. So we went to this little town, Susachito, which is about an hour and a half drive. We got a car that the hotel arranged. It was like $50. They drove us out there. We stayed at a really cute place called San Lorenzo, and it's named after this dog. And you'll see it's a really beautiful old sort of like hacienda mansion that's turned into this. I thought
you were going to say beautiful old dog.
No, what is a beautiful dog? But there's all these portraits of Lorenzo everywhere. Like it's obviously the hotel's owned by gay men. These two gay men, older gay men. These beautiful portraits of the dog. and the dog runs around the hotel and is really in charge. Like Lorenzo, if if you're anywhere, Lorenzo's around. He's a little guy. And I asked about the portraits, and I found out that there are two Lorenzos. There was a Lorenzo in the aughts who died, and now there's another Lorenzo, and the paintings are both, and he's identical. And I just thought that was the strangest thing. You have identical dog. He named it the same thing.
Oh, it's sort of like the drinks. You order one, you get two.
Exactly. It's a little cute mountain town. There's not a ton to do. We just spent one night there. We did have a really cool day on the lake. And basically you take a car to the lake, you pay a guy $20 and he takes you out on a little boat, and you kind of go all around these islands. This is a man-made lake in the 70s that was made for practical reasons and is now sort of a tourist destination. Couple really cool things to see there. There's a beautiful mural of Santa Lucia on a rock on one of the mountains. Somebody has.
And is she holding her eye? No, hold on.
Lucia.
Yeah, is she holding her eyes?
I don't know. Is she blind?
Well, that's Lucy. Maybe Lucia. No, Lucia is the one who wears a wreath of candles in her hair.
Yeah, she might have had candles, but it's a cool mural. And then there's an island that is called Hermit Island, and it's called Hermit Island because a hermit lived in the island for 45 years of his life. You can go to the cave he lived in until the government made him leave because he was getting sick. And his little cave is kind of undisturbed, and you can see where he lived, and they have photos and stuff of him. And he was sort of like a character, like a national character, this hermit that lived on Hermit Island. And there was a plane crash in the lake, and they've moved. They went, and then when they did the discovery, they pulled out the plane and they put it on top of the hill in Hermit Island. So when you go to Hermit Island, you see where the hermit was. And then you go up and you can see, where you can see the remnants of this plane crash. So very strange, interesting stuff. And then in the middle of the little town is Parque Central, which is like the historic center of the town. And the thing to see there is the Church of Santa Lucia, your girl, which is this beautifully restored church from 1859. And it's definitely worth seeing. And two quick things I'll mention about the town is they have a really weird museum called the Museum of the Thousand Plates. And it really reminded me of you, Kieran, because it is the most random thing. Like it is literally 1,000 plates, so not lying. And they have everything
Dinner
from, like,
plates.
Dinner plates. They have like the full Gone with the Wind set of dinner plates. They have American president dinner plates.
Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, I'll post a bunch of photos. It was kooky, but
it's kooky.
It was very Kieran.
Cool. Yes, it is. I can see that here.
Yes, and then I did grab a meal at a restaurant. I'll shout out Donde Charlie, which was pretty good. But your son is named Charlie, and I think I sent you a photo of the of the sign.
Yeah, where's Charlie? And I said he's right here.
And then before we jump, I think this has been a pretty good overview of the capital, of the little mountain town that is definitely worth spending a night in if you just want a quiet town. They're really developing their beach tourism, their surfing tourism. We didn't do any of that, but there are quite a few little cities that are kind of becoming tourist destinations. So you could definitely do a night in a beach town if you wanted. And Kieran, I think that's pretty good for 101.
Absolutely. I think it's time for the last stop.
The last stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last stop on this train. Everyone, please leave the train.
All right, Ryan. Well, we're here in the last stop. This is the last segment of the show. It's the final segment of the show. And it's my favorite segment. It's your favorite segment. It's popularly known as the people segment. And that's because it's a very democratic time where we come together as a community and we share of ourselves. It can be anything. We can share a memory. It could be a joke. It could be an anecdote. It could be plans that you've executed on, or it could be the things that you're planning in the future. But importantly, it must meet one criterion. It must inspire the spirit of wanderlust within us, even during the workaday week. So, Ryan, I'm going to ask you, as I ask you every episode, do you have a last stop this week?
I do, Kieran. We've been pretty Kentucky centric on this podcast lately.
Yeah, we like to go deep.
Yeah.
We were a Boston. We were a Peru podcast. First we were a Mark Adams podcast. Then we were a Peru podcast. Then a Boston podcast, and we're going through our Kentucky phase.
Yes. I read this great, really funny article in the New York Post about the Kentucky State Fair. A gentleman won a ribbon for his miniature that was called the Casting Couch, and it was a miniature of what is supposed to be a famous adult film set. I don't recognize this because I've never seen an adult film unless you count Pulp Fiction. But it is basically just an empty room with a couch and a chair, right? And apparently this is famous in, if you watch these types of films, this is a famous scene that they filmed a lot of these movies in. And it's a beautiful miniature. He did an incredible job with it, and it won a prize. And then the judges figured out what it was, and then they removed it, even though it's really just a couch and a chair. So it's
miniature controversy. This has Ryan written all over it.
So it was because of this article that I found a new guy I've just followed on Instagram, the Bearded Miniaturist, who does like sort of dark miniatures. He has like Walking Dead miniatures and horror miniatures, and I'll link to his incredible Instagram because he is a fun, weird dude.
Let's get him on the show.
I would actually love to get him on the show. I'll reach out. So yeah, so this is his second year that he has had something removed. Last year, he had a miniature called the Creepy Sex Dungeon, which was also removed.
He gave it away in the title that time.
So he is one of I think probably the most controversial miniaturists out there at this point. And a link is in the show notes for his Insta. And Kieran, did you bring a last stop?
I did, Ryan. So there's we like to share useful resources when you're thinking about a trip or planning a trip. Some of the go-to places to stop when you're considering putting your itinerary together. And Travel and Leisure put out their list of the most unique Airbnbs to stay in every state. And this is an awesome resource because you could plan trips that are close by you, or kind of staycation-y, because you can just go to an Airbnb that's close by, and many of them are quirky or really interestingly designed. The main one I looked at, and it's got a small house with a lobster boat, and there's some rooms in the grounded lobster boat you can stay in. And it turns out it's by a couple who I stayed in one of their other Airbnbs within Maine, and they have a bunch of super well designed, beautiful properties. And so you can find one through this list and then explore the portfolio, because many of them have several properties that are neat to stay on. And I'm working on a trip a couple weeks from now and thinking I'd like to stay somewhere interesting and beautiful. So I'm digging into this Airbnb list, because with kiddies, Airbnb is the way to go. You need a couple bedrooms.
Well, that is maybe the Bearded Miniaturist can do a miniature of one of these beautiful locations.
Us being killed in one of these unique Airbnbs.
What are we talking about next week, Kieran?
So I mentioned last week when I was talking about an upcoming trip I'm going to take to Alaska that I like to match music with trips. It's almost like a musical souvenir routine that I go to. So I want to talk all about matching music and trips on the next episode.
I love it. I'll put together my playlist. Until then, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kieran Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken.
He also did a Goodnight Moon miniature, which isn't dark at all. It's like the complete opposite. It's adorable.
This guy is a magician.
He really is.
What I can't understand, why do they keep letting him back in the fair?
Not many miniature artists in Kentucky.